Hey, One Detroit, I'm Stephen Henderson, sitting in for Christy McDonald, and here's what's coming up. The White House plans to deploy federal agents to Detroit, to Cleveland, and Milwaukee to address a rise in violence. U of M professor Barbara McQuade joins me to talk about the legalities of such a move, plus the difficulties of running a restaurant during COVID-19. We visit the Old School Deli in Roseville. Also ahead, parents, kids, and a debate over school safety this fall. Christy talks with Free Press columnist Nancy Kaffer. And the primary is coming up on August 4th. We talk with Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson about safe voting. That's all next on One Detroit.
Support for this program provided by W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, MASCO Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. MASCO, serving Michigan communities since 1929. The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. NISSAN Foundation, and viewers like you.
Hi, and welcome to One Detroit. I'm Stephen Henderson. Christy McDonald is off today dealing with a family health crisis that concerns her husband, Jamie Samuelson. We wish both of them and the rest of their family the best of luck dealing with this challenge. We hope you've had a good week. Coming up on the show, last week the White House announced it will deploy federal law enforcement to Cleveland, Milwaukee, and Detroit to address what it calls rising crime in these cities. U of M law professor Barbara McQuade talks with me about the potential impact of the plan, known as Operation Legend. Also, restaurants are watching really closely to see if the coronavirus will force another shutdown. We check in with Steve Morse in Roseville at the Old School Deli to talk about what it's been like to be back open. And if you don't wear a mask now, will your kids go back to school in the fall? That's what Detroit Free Press columnist Nancy Kaffer wrote about. Christy talks parenting, school, and safety. And then One Detroit's Bill Kubota talks about safe voting options with Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. It's all coming up on the show. Barbara McQuade is the former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan. She now teaches law at the University of Michigan. Barb, thanks for being with us on One Detroit.
Well, you bet, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's talk about Operation Legend, as they are calling it, and what this federal presence of law enforcement officers actually means in the city of Detroit.
I think that one thing we should be mindful of is this is not what is happening in Portland. I think that they're a program they call Operation Diligent Valor, and I wish they would get rid of these militaristic sounding names because I don't think they help. Yeah. But that is an effort to protect federal property from protesters. There have been a lot of problems with that, a lot of concerns about overreach, using militaristic uniforms and tactics and other things. As I understand Operation Legend, this is a more traditional law enforcement strategy of bolstering local resources with federal agents. Now, it's not without its concerns. I think because of the way President Trump has used agents in a way that I think some critics have suggested are to advance his political agenda. I think there is value in having some skepticism and making sure that good questions are asked about exactly what are these agents going to be doing in Detroit. But I will tell you, during the time I served as U.S. Attorney, we welcomed additional assets from federal agents who can do a lot of things that are really helpful, like gun tracings and helping with apprehension of fugitives, using data analytics to help find crime hotspots. So there's some really valuable tools that can bring to the table. But I think asking good questions to make sure that that's what they have in mind and not what's happening in Portland.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways there is maybe not an intentional, but some kind of effort to conflate these two things, right? That you come out and say, I'm going to send federal law enforcement officers to deal with protesters, and then a week later you announce this program in Detroit. Some people will be confused.
Yeah, and I don't know what's intentional and what's not. But I do think that the way President Trump handles law enforcement can be harmful. For example, announcing this initiative out of the White House and talking about how he needs to dominate the streets and call it a battle space with the use of force, referring to the cities that he's addressing as cities run by Democrat mayors. Those are not helpful. And I wish Attorney General William Barr would be a little stronger in talking about this is not a political operation. These are actions being sent to cities to supplement them. I know I read that the mayor of Kansas City said he found out that agents were coming to Kansas City by reading about it on Twitter. I would hope that the Justice Department does a better job of coordinating with mayors and with police chiefs so that they can be used in a collaborative way. Again, when I was U.S. Attorney, we had agents come to Detroit. There are agents already in Detroit, who are here permanently. But it was always a very cooperative conversation. And I think that continues to be the case. And I would expect that would continue to be the case. We have a strong mayor. We have a strong police chief who I don't think will settle for anything less.
Yeah. So I know this is not what they're doing in Detroit, but I want to talk just a little about this idea of dispatching federal law enforcement officers to deal with protesters, the legality of that, the optics of it. As you said, the move is ostensibly to protect federal property, but how proper is that?
I think it is technically lawful, but optically awful. And so, just because law enforcement can do something doesn't mean they should do something. And there have been reports of actually unlawful conduct by those agents who are in Portland. And so the idea is that the Federal Protective Service is a small agency that provides security for courthouses and other federal property. They have the ability to defend, and they really should do this work, right? I mean, if people are burning a courthouse or even spray painting it or throwing things at it, they have a duty to defend that courthouse and to charge people if they're committing assault on an officer or property damage. But one of the things they're doing is then straying a bit from that mission. We've heard reports, even affidavits from individuals who have been arrested, taken into custody in vans, questioned, and then released without any charges. They do have the ability to arrest someone if they have probable cause to believe that they have committed one of those crimes involving destruction of federal property, or if a crime is committed in the officer's presence. But the idea of being kind of a roving police force throughout the city is not part of that mission. And so I think one of the problems is this is a group that is not trained in crowd control. So these agents are way out of their league, frankly. They're wearing military uniforms without name badges. And it has the feel to me that they're being used as stage props in a way that is abusive to them and degrades public confidence in all federal agents. And as you said, conflates in people's minds, this is what federal agents do. And this is historically not what federal agents do.
Well, it hasn't been easy keeping restaurants going during the pandemic, so we went back and visited Steve Morse at the Old School Deli in Roseville. We shot our entire show at his place this past winter, just before COVID-19. Well, after a 3-month shutdown, he's back open. He requires customers to wear masks until they sit down. Most follow the rules, some don't like it. And he tells Bill Kubota he's getting by, but worries the uptick in cases could shut him down again.
The Old School Deli in Roseville is back. Closed for 3 months because of COVID-19. It opened in June, a mixed blessing for owner Steve Morse.
The last 2 weeks I've gone ahead and lost 2 people. One was through high school that I haven't seen him in a few years, but I know him. Another one was a customer / friend of mine.
The friend dropped by as the deli prepared to start serving again.
This was on a Friday. And I said, what do you got going for the weekend? He says, my daughter's flying in from Texas. 5 days later, I talked to him. I said, how you doing? He says, not good, man. He says, my daughter had COVID. I didn't know it. He says, I got it. I gave it to my wife. Talked to him on a Thursday. That following Monday, he was dead, 62. So that one hit home.
Morse got a payroll protection loan, so his employees were covered during the shutdown.
We are running a limited menu at the restaurant, as I think a lot of other places are too. Some of it is because we don't know what the clientele are going to be doing as far as dining in or even ordering, and our suppliers are having a hard time getting a lot of product.
A 40% occupancy limit now. Every other table marked off. Takeout orders are up. Enough business to keep going. But will the deli be allowed to keep going? What's the governor going to do?
You're preparing. It's funny when I go to the supply store, everyone says, we're sitting out before they open in the morning. Well, what do you think she's going to do? The general consensus is not if, but when.
Youth will not protect you from carrying and spreading this virus to your friends and family and neighbors.
Where we're at right now, seeing the cases going back up since we have reopened, I'll be very curious to see what Governor Whitmer does today with her announcement.
A lot of people saw this video footage from Cass County, Diamond Lake.
We know she's gone ahead and closed the bars back down again. Is a good move, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, I think.
The law requires that anyone in an enclosed public space has to wear a mask, and that means every store you're going into. And we are reviewing that requirement and considering whether or not we need to take this a step further to strengthen compliance. Because
The word from Lansing, no restaurant shutdowns, not this week.
Mask up.
You're feeling like we're not under control, I guess.
With the reopening, people got lackadaisical, almost to the point where I think they were thinking that, hey, I made it this far. They said we can reopen. We're okay.
The constant sanitizing, hand washing, all second nature now. And the strict enforcement of the wear your mask rule. Wear it till you take a seat.
That's the problem. The enforcement is different from Old School Deli to the restaurant up the street. Now, you want to practice safe practices, everyone's got to be on board and be uniformed. And that's what needs to happen, is uniformity throughout the industry, if not within the state of Michigan, but across the country. With our mobility, we can be here in Macomb County and very easily be on the west side of the state in 2 hours, not knowing that we're positive. I've had customers that have been into the restaurant here that have been asymptomatic. That in turn caused me to have my staff all tested, and I just got the results back last night. That everything's fine. My staff, they're working in a kitchen that's over 100 degrees back there, and they're wearing masks and face shields to protect you. All I ask, if you're going to come in, help protect us too. Give and take.
Do you think you've lost any customers because of the mask thing?
Yes, I know for sure. Absolutely. And if those people can't respect what is in place with us through the state, Governor Whitmer says, hey, face masks have to be worn going into these establishments. Shame on them for not listening to that.
The masks, COVID numbers rising again, and some other numbers on the balance sheet. As a small business owner, Steve Morse wonders when he can pay himself again.
Gas, electric, food costs, staff's getting paid, The guy that writes the checks, he's taking a little hit right now. But, all I can do is get better.
I opened up the Detroit Free Press a couple weeks ago and I saw the headline, "Wear Your Mask Because My Child Needs to Go Back to School This Fall." And the author was columnist Nancy Kaffer, who joins me now. And Nancy, I know a lot of parents are saying the same thing right now.
Yeah, I think all of us are staring down the next school year, wondering what's going to happen. We have no idea how we feel about it, whether it feels safe, what's going to happen. There's a lot of anxiety, Christy.
Yeah, and I think what it's going to take to make us all feel safe, and it feels like we're having conversations around what schools need, and then we're talking about what parents need, what kids need. Are we having the right conversations that actually put all of those things together, and then we'll talk about opening up the economy, or are we still having them in silos without any real connection?
Yeah, no, I don't think we are having the right conversations because, like you said, it's all compartmentalized, and we're talking about doing all this stuff like we're going to shrink class sizes and have online learning and da 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 and all this stuff that we don't really have the money to do. And we're talking about, how can we support parents and this, that, and the other? But the way we can handle all of it and reopen the economy is to control the virus.
And I think really what we're looking at too is the disparity of how it's going to affect people in different ways. I know that when we talk about the flexibility of jobs and allowing us to be able to get through the spring and the homeschooling and employers being really understanding of that, but moving through, will people end up getting penalized if their child is, say, in-seat classroom for 2 weeks, but then there's an outbreak or something happens and everything rolls back again? You're going to have this kind of moving forward 10 steps back situation with a lot of people that it may really affect their families and their ability to be able to have an income.
Yeah, we got through this spring on crisis mode, right? But now we're in this different stage. We're in this long haul stage because what we kind of did this spring just isn't really sustainable, right? I mean, does it feel sustainable for you?
It doesn't feel very sustainable to me, and it feels like it was you lurch forward a bit with some things, and then the fatigue, or whether the kids the attention, and whether you're able to sustain that level of energy.
So what's it like this fall as our employers want us to move into a more normal amount of productivity when we're, I think we all kind of felt like not to disrespect or disregard the value of 3 months of schooling, but we have places around the country where we've had hurricanes and kids were out of school for several months, or where there's some sort of natural disaster and it disrupts the school year. It's not great, but we know we can kind of get through that. But now we're looking at like, okay, so but what if school doesn't reopen this fall? What if school is online only this fall? What if, like you said, it's a weekend class and then pulled back out of class for virtual learning? What does that look like as we get into this long haul? Because it's not, what we've been doing isn't long haul planning, long haul working.
And I think it gets into the larger conversations that I'm seeing happen across social media, and you're seeing articles pop up in every publication talking about, in a COVID-19 world, you can either have a job or a child, you can't have both, or calling into questioning how we've been able to support working parents, and more specifically working mothers, that now this situation has become almost untenable.
Well, yes, I think there's two distinct pieces here. Number one is that our culture largely considers the job of raising children to be the individual job of one person, and most often that's a woman, right? Like, even when there's a dad involved, we all know that the burden of child rearing falls disproportionately on women. So, but the idea that childcare, that collectively we have an interest in raising healthy, capable children who are able to participate in the economy and just generally be happy and well-adjusted and self-sufficient, being a collective good is really revolutionary, and we're not there. That's one long-term need that we need to address. It's how to structure our culture so that parents, and most often women, are better supported in child rearing. And the other thing is controlling the virus. Those are two distinct things, and they can happen at the same time, though. We can do them all if we wanted to.
If we wanted to, but that also looks at funding. And do we have the funding in place to make sure that the schools have the adequate facilities and things that they need to make schools safe? And you're seeing it play out in Detroit right now. People protesting, saying we don't want these schools open because we are concerned about safety.
Everyone is desperate for school to reopen. Like, we need our kids to go to school, not just so we can work, but so that our kids can be educated, so they can have these social and emotional connections that are so important. But none of us really feel good about it right now. I mean, if school were open tomorrow, I don't know that I'd send my child.
What are the things that you would like to see that would help support parents schooling at the same time and safety?
So the things that we need to do are the stuff that we know that keeps us safe: masking, hand washing, social distancing, being really prudent and thoughtful about what businesses are open and what businesses we patronize. That controls the transmission rate. We also need a better contact tracing system, because robust contact tracing is part of what helps us keep keep the virus in check. We've been through a lot. We're all kind of a little bit traumatized by it. Nothing like this has happened in our lifetimes. And, we not only do we have to be safe, people have to feel safe. And I think we're a really long way away from both of those things.
Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, thanks for joining us here at One Detroit.
Thanks for having me.
We're talking about the 2020 vote, a couple big days coming up, one of them the August primary next week. Now,
Yes.
You've been busy there and with this pandemic going on. Just what have you been doing lately these past few weeks, these past few days?
I mean, every day, especially now so close to the election, making sure every voter knows how to get their ballot and return it. Voters in Michigan have safe options for voting this year. They can vote by mail, they can vote early in person at their clerk's office, or they can vote traditionally in person at your precinct on election day. And then the other piece is troubleshooting for the infrastructure itself. For example, we've learned that from several jurisdictions, the need for poll workers to fill spots at the precinct level and help process all these absentee ballots that are getting sent through the mail. So we've recruited for the past several months 5,000 election workers. But one of the things we've been doing over the past several days is working to train and deploy those election workers where they're needed throughout the state.
Where are some of those shortages? Any in the Detroit area?
Yes, all over the state. But for example, the city of Detroit has hundreds of vacancies they're filling as a result of the pandemic, which has led for many traditional poll workers to decline to serve this year, which we understand. We don't want anyone to feel they need to serve if they're immune compromised, for example. But we've also been able to backfill those positions with an enormous number of new volunteers, which requires more training and a lot of extra work.
I've got my ballot. I haven't filled it out yet. Coming up on deadline, we worry about, some places mail's taking a little bit longer than it should. Should we be worried about that when we mail in our votes?
Yes, we certainly, that's kind of another additional variable that we've encountered this year. Working to make sure when you mail your ballot in that it's received and counted has always been an important challenge of implementing a vote by mail system. But that, of course, is even amplified this year as the U.S. Postal Service has been underfunded and overtaxed, overworked throughout the 2020. So we have actually used some of our federal CARES funding to put out secure ballot drop boxes throughout the state, including 2 that are in Detroit for this primary, and we'll have even more in advance of November, with an aim to put one in every city council district for the November election. But what those are designed to do is for a moment like this, where we're now less than a week prior to an election or primary, in this case, it gives you an option to just, instead of putting your ballot in a mailbox, put it in a drop box, remove the middleman, so to say, of the U.S. Postal Service, and by putting it in that drop box, you'll ensure, as long as it's in that drop box by 8 p.m. on election day, your vote will count.
Now, President Trump, among others, doesn't like the idea of mail-in voting. It's voter fraud he's concerned about. Isn't it possible for somebody to vote in somebody else's name or vote by mail and then go down to the precinct and vote again?
Well, we certainly know that, one, that would be illegal. If someone's going to vote twice and that sort of thing, we've got parameters in place to catch that if someone is intent on breaking the law. For example, voting by mail, which the president and many members of his team have done. It has several security provisions in place to protect against any type of misuse of the ballot. Meaning when you request your ballot, your request has to have your signature on it. That signature is then matched to your voter file in order to verify your identity and trigger the ballot sending to you. Then when you get your ballot, you fill it out, you put it in a secrecy sleeve, and then you put it in an envelope. You then sign the outside of that envelope. That signature is then matched to your voter file signature. And of course, it's illegal to forge a signature. It's also really hard to do so successfully. And then finally, for your question about how to prevent someone from voting by mail and then going to vote in person, as soon as someone is sent a ballot, it is inputted into our system. So we know that in our statewide voter file, that person has been sent a ballot. And then as soon as it's received back, that is also noted. So that if someone were to show up and the election worker looked up their name, it would immediately pop up to say, hey, this person's already sent back their ballot, and they would be breaking the law if they were to vote again.
What would you like to see in terms of the percentages, the number of people voting in person, voting absentee? It may be a little higher because we're under a pandemic right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see record turnout this year. We got, period, which is really encouraging that even in the midst of this pandemic, all the data points to record-breaking turnout across the board. And I think we're also going to see records broken in the number of people voting by mail. We've already seen that for our August primary, where 2 million people have requested to vote by mail, which is higher than ever before in any election in our state.
Secretary of State Benson, thanks for talking to One Detroit.
Thanks for having me. I'm sure we'll talk again before all is said and done.
For more, just go to our website at onedetroitpbs.org. And remember, you can get your arts and culture fix by tuning in to our One Detroit Arts and Culture episodes on Mondays at 7:30 p.m. Lastly, my friend and colleague Christy McDonald and her husband, sports radio host Jamie Samuelson, announced he's been battling colon cancer. On behalf of everyone at Detroit Public Television, our thoughts are with them. For One Detroit, I'm Stephen Henderson. See you next time, and take care.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.
Support for this program provided by W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, MASCO Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. MASCO, serving Michigan communities since 1929. The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. NISSAN Foundation, and viewers like you.